Hi everybody, this is part 2 of the Definitive Maths Methods Units 3, 4 Hot Tips series of videos. This is part 2. 12.1 Probability density functions. Now, you must have all of the line traced out, including the minus infinity to plus infinity bit, the flat line 0 part of the graph. You must include the horizontal flat line 0 part of the graph. So you use arrows to show the directions off to the left and off to the right, and you take a thick different coloured felt pen into the exam and use it if necessary to show these 0 parts of the graph and to make them easy to distinguish from the printed black axes which may be provided with the paper, which would be provided with the paper, guys. Okay, next. In the exam 2, which is the CAS, that's the technology enabled paper, for a 2-mark question you only have to state a formula of some kind or some kind of reasoning and then a calculated answer to gain the required marks, providing of course it's not a show that question. For a 3-mark question then you need to provide 2 stages of intermediate reasoning before presenting the final answer with your CAS. Okay? Alright, next. Please do not give them any more information than you are asked for. If you provide more information than is necessary and that extra information, even though it wasn't required, is incorrect, you will lose marks. Did you know that? It's incredible, but it's true, right? So don't do it. Just give them what they want and don't give them any more. If you ask for an inverse function, then you need to give the domain as well as the function, and please give it in the correct notation, such as this if the original function was notated as f of x, right? Not y. You need to make reference to the original notation of the function and then give the correct inverse notation which relates to that, all right? If, on the other hand, you just ask for the rule of the inverse function, do not give the domain. Just give the rule for reasons which I've just been outlining, okay? If you're asked for a transformed function after certain transformation steps have been carried out, be very, very careful how you notate the answer for that transformed function. If the original function was f of x, do not call the transformed function f of x as well, because that is wrong. You're implying it's the same function if you do that, guys. You don't do that. Call it something else which you can define yourself. If the transformed function is g of x, then g of x equals blah blah blah. That's what you can do, okay? But just don't call it the same as the original function before you do the transformation steps. Next, do not use the. This is a CAS handheld thing actually, which snuck in here. Do not use the sine or the signum function notation which your calculator has. Convert any functions which you get from the calculator into hybrid form. The signum or the sine function is +1 for certain values of x and -1 for certain other values of x. That's how it works. Don't use it. Next, cab off the rank. If writing integrals, please remember the dx. You leave that out at your peril, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you. Okay? Don't do that. Now, make a start on problems for easy marks. E.g., you can get method marks for using product rule or chain rule or quotient rule in some questions, irrespective of whether you followed through to the end of the question. You do not have to go right through to the end in order to gain marks. So if you're getting towards the end of the paper, for example, and you're just really thinking, oh my goodness, you just want to go on a bit of a mark hunt and just find the easy marks and get them, okay? It's all strategy, it's all pragmatism, okay? You are a mark hunter. That's what you are. Know how to do long multiplication and division and long multiplication using decimals. Yes, that's becoming increasingly more important. Examiners are getting alarmed at the by-hand skills of students and they're starting to more actively test that, okay? Know how to do basic cancelling and know how to do factor trees for surd expressions. That's also important. If a point on a graph is asked for, this means the formal coordinate x, y point. That's what point means, ladies and gentlemen. If coordinates of x-intercepts are asked for and a graph passes through the origin, then notate them as like that, 0, 0 in brackets, okay? Derivatives for trig functions only apply when the angles are actually in radians. This is particularly crucial when you're doing things like d theta dt, for example, in a related rates kind of question. If you're doing that, you need to be using radians for the angle theta, radians. And this would be radians per second, for example. Okay. Next, take a different coloured pen, felt pen, into the exam for when you have to overlay something which appears in black, and you have to clearly delineate a different curve running over part of the same graph which shows in black on the axes or on an axis shown in black. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's just good common sense, okay? Know all your exact trig angle values and their quadrant 2, 3 and 4 cousins, and don't rely on the formula sheet. That's pi on 6, pi on 4, pi on 3, 0 and pi on 2. You've got to know them all, guys. Please remember your formulae. Don't rely on the formula sheet. The formula sheet is just for mental blanks in an emergency when your head just shuts down, and hopefully that won't happen. Highlight key information in questions so that the information stands out clearly and you won't waste time rereading parts of questions trying to find information that you've already read once. That's a big one, that one. Get your highlighter at the ready and go for it, guys. Remember to follow the thread. Now this is a very important one. Remember to follow the thread of a multi-part extended response question as it progresses. Information from previous parts usually has some bearing on what is asked later on in the question. Often the question is scaffolded or broken down into parts which then build up to a certain intended result where previous parts are needed in order to achieve that. Therefore, don't forget successive question parts as soon as you have done them. Keep the whole story or picture in your mind. This is very important, okay? It's connected. It's connected. What happens in those long multi-part extended response questions. If you are asked for an equation, then you must have an equal sign in whatever you write down. Something has to equal something, otherwise you won't be marked correct. If you are asked to explain something, then you must use words in a sentence, not just a graph. You have to actually put pen to paper with a sentence. Okay, if you're asked for an expression, then don't give an equation, just give the expression. I know it's very, very pedantic, very fussy, but this is what you have to do. Alright, for a 2-mark question involving normal distributions, now this is really important, for which it is fairly straightforward to find the answer and for which it is tempting just to give the answer, please don't. What I want you to do is give some means of getting the first method mark, such as a sketch diagram of the bell curve to represent what is being asked for at a shaded region as appropriate to obtain the method mark, and then give them the answer. Okay, give them the answer. That's really important. Many students miss out on 1 mark of the 2 possible marks because they don't show any working for this kind of a question. Okay. That's about it, guys. I hope you get some value out of that. All the very best, and we'll see you soon.